Hi guys. Today we're gonna go into the heart, literally. I really miss not teaching this to you. This is one of my favorite chapters and we would be doing so much with it. But in order for you to understand the whole heart concept, it's better for me to talk to you about it than to just have you read about it. So the heart is the size of your fist and it's in the center of your chest, tilted to the left. I love when I watch kids do the Pledge of Allegiance. Sometimes their hand is all the way to the left-hand side of their body, and it's really not there. It's in the center of your chest, but it's tilted to the left. Its shape is an upside-down pear. Technically, the heart is not a very pretty organ. I know with Valentine's Day, we do little hearts, and oh, it's so beautiful. It really doesn't look like that. But the heart is the center of our being. So what I want to do with you is go through the parts, okay? So remember, folks, the heart is facing you. So the hardest thing for you to remember is that the right side, I can spell, there we go. The right side is on the left and the left side is on the right because it's facing you. Okay, now remember, I want you to label this with me, just like I said in the instructions. I want you to do this with me, so it's like if you're in class with me. So let's talk about first the chambers of the heart. Chambers is a fancy word for rooms. If we were living in England and you were going to go to sleep for the night, you wouldn't say, I'm going to my bedroom. You would say, I'm retiring to my chamber. That's how they speak. Very fancy. But we have 4 chambers in the heart. And this one right here is called the right atrium. Atrium is singular. When we talk about both atriums, we don't call them atriums, we call them atria. And the right atrium is going to be what we call the receiving chamber from the body. I'll go through the blood vessels all around, but I first want to talk about the individual rooms. The one thing that's interesting about the right atrium is that it contains the natural pacemaker for your heart. So when you hear lub-dub, 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 it's the pacemaker that is inside the right atrium. It's a patch of nerves that's directly attached to your brain. It's a very long strand of nerve cords, or neurons, as we've done before. And when someone needs a pacemaker put in, they actually put the leads of a wire through this blood vessel, which we're going to talk about, it's the superior vena cava, into the right atrium. Now, what separates the right atrium from this bottom chamber are valves. Yep, same type of valves that you'd find in your veins so that the blood can't go backwards. It prevents the backflow. So this right here is a valve. And of course, valves have names. You are not responsible to know the names of the valves on a 7th grade level. Then the blood is going to drop into the right ventricle. Ventricles are a little bit larger than the atrium. Now, the right ventricle is not the largest chamber, but it is quite large in comparison to the atrium that are up on the top. And blood's going to be shipped out. I'll get to that in a second. But this room right here, now we're on the left side. This is going to be the left atrium. We got valves again. And then we have this one, the left ventricle. Now, the left ventricle is the largest chamber of the heart. Okay, the largest one. If we were doing the sheep dissection of heart, you'd see this. Okay, you can see how muscular it is right here. It's very, very thick, and it's going to have the biggest push because your largest artery is going to be attached to that. And so now I want to talk about what your blood vessels are, okay? This right here that leads into the right atrium is called the superior vena cava. Vena cava comes from the Latin language. Superior means top. There's actually 2 vena cavas. There's the superior, which gets blood from, let's say, your head, your neck, your shoulder area, top portion of your body, and the inferior vena cava that comes behind the heart and actually does connect to the superior vena cava. This right here is your inferior vena cava. And I know sometimes you think the word inferior means it's not good. No. In Latin, inferior means lower. So this is coming from everything from, let's say, your waist down, going back to the heart. Because remember, veins take blood to the heart. So they're basically about the same size. Inferior vena cava will connect to the superior vena cava. We're going to go with the superior vena cava being the largest vein in the body. But how they got their names is superior means the top of the body, inferior lower portion of the body. So blood came through the superior vena cava, right atrium, right ventricle. Well, because this blood that came in is from the body, it's oxygen poor. It's dark, dark red. Needs oxygen because there's a lot of carbon dioxide in it. So the only way to get oxygen is to the lungs. And so from the right ventricle, it's going to get shipped out. Yeah, there's valves there. I'm not worried about those. It's going to get shipped out through this tube, which is called the pulmonary artery. And it's going to go to the lungs. The word pulmonary means lungs. Anytime you hear pulmonary, it means lungs. But you have two lungs, so you have to have another pulmonary artery, and you do. The pulmonary artery actually splits behind the heart. This right here is another pulmonary artery. Two lungs, two arteries. Arteries have a big push. They're going to go away from the heart. Arteries away, A to A. And in the lungs, wonderful things happen. Carbon dioxide gets removed. Oxygen replaces it through the capillaries. Those are your smallest blood vessels. The actual portion of the lungs that does this is called the alveoli. Not ravioli, alveoli. And once the carbon dioxide leaves and the oxygen comes in, the blood turns bright, 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 bright red. So it's got to go back to the heart. You can't keep all the blood in the lungs. you would suffocate. You would drown in your own blood. And so you're going to have veins that are going to take it back to the heart. Well, it left the lungs. It's going to go through veins. Right here is called your pulmonary veins. And you have two of them here. Wow, look at that. You only had one artery, but you have two pulmonary veins. Well, that's because veins are smaller than arteries. But remember, you have two lungs. If you had two pulmonary arteries, you're going to have more veins. So over here, these two right here, those are also pulmonary veins. Now, if we were in class, I would have asked as a brownie point question, how come we only have to have two pulmonary arteries, but we have to have four pulmonary veins? And the reason for that is because the veins are much smaller, okay, and they don't have as much pressure. So blood came back to the heart, and it's going to empty into the left atrium, come through to the left ventricle, largest chamber. It's going to push out the blood to go away from the heart through the aorta. And I know in the picture you don't see it that well, but actually this blood gets shipped through that valve right there. Don't worry about the name of that. And it comes out, and this huge artery is called the aorta. It's huge. And then it will branch off to other arteries, such as your carotid artery, which goes up the sides of your neck. Or this one actually comes back around, and for those of you who don't like to leave anything blank, this portion of the aorta that branches off is actually called the femoral artery. The femoral artery. You should be saying to yourself, why does that sound familiar? Because when you did the skeletal system, you had a bone called the femur. and the femur is your thigh bone, and you have a very large artery that runs down the side of that bone, and that's the femoral artery. So those are the parts of the heart. And again, the valves do have names. Don't worry about it. It's just there to prevent backflow. The word pulmonary means lung, so it's got to have something to do with some type of circulation back to the lungs. And, you know, it's a lot easier to do this in class, but as this is the first time you're seeing this and all the different parts, this was the best way I could perform this for you. One last thing. While the right side of the heart is filling up with oxygen-poor blood, it's dark red, at the same time, the left side of the heart is filling up with oxygen-rich blood. It has to. You have to have complete circulation through. When the blood leaves the right side of the heart to go to the lungs, it doesn't wait for it. You have oxygen-rich blood coming through on the left side. And what's going to separate the two sides of the heart? This is called, and I'm going to change colors so maybe you can see it. It's called the septum. I'm going to write it over here. Septum. This is your left, because remember it's facing you, and this is your right. It actually separates the carbon dioxide rich from the oxygen rich. Okay? Now, on the next lesson, we're going to talk about the full circulation, but for today, I really want you to be focused on the parts and the names. Okay? Well, guys, I do hope you're doing well. The school year is coming to an end, not the way we wanted it to come to an end, but I miss you. Do your best on this, and we're going to get through it together. Have a great day. Bye.